what is stress actually? Like, I think we need to understand this first before, finding the solutions on this problem. But what actually stress is?
Well, stress is really a response to a change, okay, in our life, and it's a positive response that we have. And imagine a mad dog on the street.
Discover a new version of yourself. Join the life-changing webinar on the Silva Method by Dragan Vujovic, certified Silva Method instructor.
Running towards you, then what happens? You have a stress reaction in your body. All this adrenaline is pumped up, and you're running away the best that you can. So, and this is the so-called fight or flight reaction. And but we live in a world where people interpret this, endangering of their life from different viewpoints. Work. Am I going to finish this project in time? Are they going to kick me out and fire me? What about my wife? She's in a good mood lately. The kids, are not talking to me. People feel this threats feel from all sides, and this is why they live in a chronic stress. Other definition is stress is emotional or thinking or physical tension, in general. And sometimes the psychologists say that it's the demands of the situation exceed the perception of the person of their ability to solve this or cope with this. So, but the really the closest and the simplest is the reaction to a change. But keep in mind that today's person has so many changes. Even the cell phone, the messages that they send, the social media. So there's so much information being bombed at them, sent to them. So they experience a lot of changes during the day, and then they live in chronic stress. What is really unhealthy is chronic stress, not stress as a built-in natural reaction. And chronic stress means that this person is living in this tension type world and full of these feelings of threats coming from all sides, all these things that are endangering his life or her life. And that creates blocking of the energy pathways in the body, because our body is like a highway system in India, and then you have in your body the backbone, the main highway, then you have all these regional highways and throughways, and then you have the small roads to the villages and so forth. So then the stress creates blockages, the so-called stress blockers, and they block the energy pathways. And if the energy pathways are blocked for a longer period of time, then the disease appears in that part of the body, whether it's a kidney and they have a stone in the kidney or in the gallbladder, or whether it is veins on their legs, or whether it is a problem with the lower back pain, and so forth. So everybody has their sensitive parts, and that's where the blockage happens due to chronic stress, and that's why diseases happen. So stress is really the a major source of diseases on this planet.
Yeah, so we have already discussed so many things. So let's break this in small parts, so that people will get more depth on into this.
Mhm.
So as you were telling that it's not necessary that stress is always signifies the bad parts. Stress sometimes it's good, but tensions type stresses like chronic stress are bad. So let's put some more light onto this. So what kind of stress people can think that yeah it's a healthy thing, we should have this, or what
This is
kind of stress, yeah, that they should be aware, no, I'm getting more into that, bad part of stress, and now I have to be, or I should be aware of that.
There are two major sources of stress. If you look at a source of a river, which starts as a creek and then develops as a river, okay,
Hmm.
then there are two major sources which work in our everyday life continuously. One is worries, and the second one is guilt feelings. Okay, and this is how everybody goes through them. Worries are directly
Correct.
towards the future, and guilt feelings
Hmm.
towards the past. Okay, so people
Hmm.
have worries about the future. What's going to happen with my dad? He went to the hospital. How is the surgery gonna go on? Is he gonna be able to manage this and come home? Of course, the worries can be about ourselves or our closest ones, or about work, about
Hmm.
anything. And then the guilt feelings are about the past. What did I mess up? What is it that I didn't do right? And then what about other people that didn't behave rightly towards me, like my boss who criticized me, like my wife who doesn't appreciate what I'm doing for the family, and so forth. So the worries directly towards the future and the guilt feelings directly towards the past are the major forms of sources of stress in everyday thinking and functioning of a human being. And we have one suggestion I have in our program, the Unstressed Toolbox, nine tools for managing stress and neutralizing stress. I have a worry transformer. And what do you do there? When a worry comes in, let's say about it, let's say my dad, they took him to the hospital, he might have a surgery, and the prognosis is not so, positive. So you start with the bad thought, with the worries, and worries always have these, negative possible outcomes in the future. And sometimes people are experts in catastrophic outcomes in the future, and they're used to that. So you say, what if my dad doesn't, get back home? What if the surgery doesn't go well? And then you use the four-step formula, which is the worry transformer. You say, stop, Debelina, okay, or stop Dragan. And then you go, you stop the direction of this thinking process towards your fears, okay? And then you say, what was I thinking about that I'm afraid of? I was thinking about my daddy not managing this surgery and not coming back home. And then you go, what do I desire? I desire for my dad to, go through the surgery well and come back home, in good health and functioning well. And then you confirm the desire as if it had happened already. And you say, my dad has managed the surgery well. He has come back home, joyful and functioning well. And that's changing the whole thinking process from a process directed towards fears to a process directed towards fulfilled desires. That's a complete change in the thinking structure of a human being every day. And I suggest to people to do this daily whenever they catch themselves in a worrying process. And keep in mind that repeated worries create anxiety. And anxiety is 20% of Americans, according to the American Institute of Stress. Americans are the most stressed out people in the world. They're about 55% of Americans live under stress, according to the surveys. The rest of the world, 143 countries, 35%. But still, it's very high.
Discover a new version of yourself. Join the life-changing webinar on the Silva Method by Dragan Vujovic, certified Silva Method instructor.
So this is the major source, is the worries. The second one is the guilt feelings, and we have in the Unstressed Toolbox, we have a guilt eliminator, okay? And I can also explain that if you want me to, but that's the second one, and that's regarding the past. And people have this feeling of guilt, blaming themselves and blaming others. I should have done this. I could have done this better. I didn't fulfill this. I didn't reach this goal. This was a failure, and this, that I did. Or they also blame others, for what's happening in their life. And they say, my mother-in-law, is not appreciating what I do, as a son for, as a husband for my family and for her daughter and so forth. People blame everything and everybody, especially the weather, the prime minister, and the economic situation for what's happening in their life. But usually they blame concrete persons, especially themselves. If they blame themselves, they usually also afterwards punish themselves for not fulfilling this or for not reaching the goal and stuff. So this inner punishment goes on continuously, When it's regarding other people, then they actually locate the responsibility for their life to other people. It's the prime minister, it's my mother-in-law, it's the weather, and it's my boss, not me, and it's me, I'm an angel, but look what these other people are doing to me. So this guilt feeling, I have a tool which is called Guilt Eliminator in the Unstressed Toolbox. They're both done during the day in the awake state. You don't go to alpha frequency, you don't close your eyes and go. This is done in the awake state. And guilt feeling is done like a coin. You have two sides. And the first one is you imagine, in front of you, just close your eyes and imagine there's this people, or visualize, let's be precise, a person that has not behaved fairly towards you or in line with your moral, criteria. And then you address this person mentally and you say, I accept that you did the best that you can in a certain situation, if it was one situation, or in our relationship from the beginning until today, okay? Why do you accept and how do you accept? Based on what? That this person did the best they can. You accept that they did the best they could, in line with their knowledge and experience. Let's keep in mind that our viewers, after our viewing our podcast or listening to it, will have different new knowledge and new experience. So what they did yesterday, they might do differently today because they have new knowledge and new experience. So you say you did the best you could in line with knowledge and experience that you had at your disposal. Okay, you did the best that you could in line with the dominant programs in your library of subconscious. because your subconscious library is your library of habits. And we're 95% of time, we're habitual. So this other person has different habits because they had different parents, different childhood. So, they behave differently than I would. And this is the basic mistake that people say, I would never do this, in his place or in her place. I would never behave like this. Well, he would never behave like you because he has different set of programs and habits. He had different parents, different moral, codex and everything. So this is the second criteria. Third criteria, you accept that this person did the best they could in line with their level of development, because we all have this curve, of development, life curve, and they did the best they could based on the level of the point in this curve of level of development on which they were. So once you accept that they did the best they could, then you can go to the second part, which is forgiveness, and you say, once I accept it, I forgive you, you are forgiven. Then you go to the third part and you send a mental present to this person. This is my specialty. And you say, I send to you from all of my heart. And then you say, more tolerance, more respect. Let's say it's a boss, more respect for your co-workers, better communication skills, and so forth. So you're sending out a mental present to this person, what they were lacking so far. This is called the guilt eliminator. When you do the other person, you finish this, then you do it for yourself. You imagine, you visualize yourself as if your twin was standing right in front of you, and you go through the 3 steps: acceptance, forgiveness, and mental presence. And that is a fantastic tool which cleanses the guilt feeling from you, because the guilt feeling about the past, either yourself or somebody else, is really a radiation. It's really a poison in the body. And it's a big source of stress, So these 2 sources, continuously work in a person, worries about the future, probably more than guilt feelings, and guilt feelings about the past. And this is the constant 2 sources every day. And whether the worries are about work, we can talk about it, or about money, or about relationships, that's different areas. But these are the 2 sources. And I have created 2 tools which neutralize this so that every person can use them. And keep in mind one thing: when you accept that the other person did the best they could, it doesn't mean that you agree with that, okay? And people mix that up, because I accept that a person did the best that they could on a certain occasion, and I had this question and say, well, there was a terrorist in Brussels, and he blew up a bomb and he killed 7 people and injured 10. You are telling me, Dragan, that they did the best they could? Of course they did. In line with these 3 criteria, they did the best they could. But I don't agree with that, okay? I, as Dragan, I will do everything that I can to make this world a better place, where nobody is going to limit the free will of a human being or harm another human being. So, but I accept that he did the best he could, okay? Because keep in mind that this person that did this, when he was in his mother's womb, already his brain was programmed that these other people, across the border are the bad ones. And if you kill him, then you liberate your own people. Then you're doing something very, fantastically good. And God is also going to receive you with all these presents and I don't know what else, so forth. So, according to the 3 criteria, he did the best he could. I don't agree with that. And I wouldn't ever do that. I'm doing everything possible to eliminate that from this planet, okay, as a free human being. So that's in order to understand, and people also forgive without the acceptance that a person did the best they could. I met with a lady and she said, I read a book on forgiveness. It's so beautiful, Dragan, and I'm forgiving all the time, everybody. And I said, who do you forgive? Because I as a teacher, trainer, I like to provoke a little bit so people become aware of, what they're doing. And sometimes they do it superficially,
If it's doing correctly or
I
not.
forgive everybody. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful feeling, the forgiveness. Said, who do you forgive the most? She says, my ex-husband. So I say, does he send regular money, like alimonies for the kids? And then she, started grinding her teeth. And she said, no, he doesn't, this idiot, So I said, what is the forgiveness about? It's empty, it's superficial. You got to accept that he did the best he could. Then the forgiveness has its full power, okay? And then you send the mental present. So these are 2 tools that I described to you and our spectators and our people that are listening to the podcast, because I'm used to equipping people with tools. I don't like to talk about stuff, theoretically or in general.